All right. Well, you know what? We are at the top of the hour, so I am going to share my screen, and we'll get this kicked off for today. So, welcome everyone to this edition of the Vancouver Power BI and Modern Excel user group. I seem to be on the wrong slide. I actually thought that I was going to be on this one because this is the only way that I know how to tell what day it actually is. So this is the May edition of the Power BI meetup. So there we go. That's what happens when you work for yourself. I only work on days that end in Y, and I lose track of weekends. So here we go. We're going to jump in. Cristian's going to be giving us his presentation on using Power Query to write back to SQL Server. If you were with us for Cristian's last presentation, you know I cut him off because we ran a little bit over time. So Cristian's going to complete that through and give us a bit more content as well in this session today. As always, I want to throw a big shout out to the sponsors that make this happen. SkillWave, of course, being the training company that Matt Allington and I run, which you can find at skillwave.training, is where we actually teach all kinds of amazing things on how to use Excel and Power BI in the most effective ways. Excel Guru is my company that I've been running for many years, and well, hey, look, it's just part of this deal. But we also write Monkey Tools, which is an Excel add-in that allows you to build better models faster. And you may notice if you've been here that this banner looks a little bit new. It's not that sort of cartoon-looking monkey anymore. We've got the official data monkey on this guy here, and there's a reason for this. It's going to be coming up in just a few minutes. Our next meetups that we have coming up. In June, we're super pleased to be welcoming Melissa DeCorta to the program. She's going to be talking about Power Query, giving some stories from the trenches and multiple solutions to a specific data problem, which is going to be really interesting. I've also got Leila Atati. I can't believe I've actually never had Leila on the show yet. So Leila's going to be coming. Joseph, you're excited about this. So Leila's going to be coming to give us a presentation. Notice that for Melissa, because she's based in the Netherlands, we will be starting at noon Pacific time. Leila's going to get us back to our regular 6 p.m. start, so I don't have to beg Joseph to take time off of work to come and do the What's New in Power BI. Now, we've got Leila's topic down as something really cool and interesting. I know that it's going to be on AI and Charticulator, I believe, but we still don't have the official title on this one, so that will be coming up. But some cool presentations coming up in the next month here. All right, as far as Monkey Tools goes, this is a huge thing here. This is the first place to hear this. We have just launched a brand new website for Monkey Tools. It is no longer on that horribly ugly sales page at excelguru.ca. We've actually got a brand new website for monkeytools.ca, which is clean and pretty and beautiful, that will allow you to get right in to figure out how to buy things, what the actual feature sets are. There's a huge list of all the different features that Monkey Tools does as we go through this stuff here. It's got a full knowledge base now for helping people figure out what's actually going in, even linking back to videos. And full disclosure, this is a part that I'm actually working on to get things done. But if you are a Monkey Tools user, or even if you're not, you might want to actually check out this site to learn a little bit about what Monkey Tools can actually do. It's a good overview in our knowledge base here. We're super, super pleased here. And for those of you who are customers, if you're looking to actually manage your account and things like that, we actually now have a really nice and easy link at the top here where you can actually go and get into your account and recover your license keys and manage your subscriptions and things like that as well. So it's the big news on the Monkey Tools front here. This is been a big amount of effort to get this up and running. It's way overdue, and my focus on the next little while here is going to be chipping away at trying to get my documentation up to date so that people actually know about all the cool features that we've built that we keep forgetting to tell people about and tell them how to use. So if you're interested, check it out at monkeytools.ca. Also, I want to just make sure that people know as well, we have a special currently working here on my first in-person training since COVID started. In August, I will actually be in Mississauga, Ontario, and we're going to be running a live self-service BI bootcamp, 3 days on-site training. You'll also get a registration once the course is over so that you get a year's worth of access to the online program that we run at SkillWave. But if you have been waiting to get back in classroom, this is going to be a small event, maximum of 20 people here, is going to be happening in August in Ontario. So there is a coupon code, or if you register by May 27th, rather, you'll save $350 off the price. So may want to check that out. Of course, the home for the VanPUG meetup recordings is on the Skillwave YouTube channel. We will have the recording of this posted within the next 48 hours, and you can always find all of the recordings from our for this calendar year are all hosted there and will be in future, as well as, of course, my monkey shorts, those quick 3-minute or less technical targeted videos that we're publishing on a weekly basis. And there was a brand new one actually went out this morning as well, so you should definitely check out monkey shorts if you like just that quick bite-sized stuff. We got all kinds of cool tips going on there. Last thing that I'm going to throw out here before I make way for Joseph to do our What's New is if you would like to get on stage and present at the Vancouver Power BI Modern Excel User Group, we would love to have you here. We're looking for speakers all the time. We love new speakers who want to try their hand at this kind of stuff. All you need to do is fill out the form, get in contact with us. Anything that's connected to Excel, Power BI, or the Power Platform, we would love to hear about. So, feel free to reach out to us and let's get you on our stage. And on that note, I think that's the intro done. Joseph, I think it's your turn. I believe you've actually got some cool new content for the What's New in Power BI this time around.
I always have cool new content. For what's new.
Okay, fine. Let's say they gave you a new build to work with, so you don't actually have to talk about the fact that it hasn't come out yet, is what I meant.
Definitely. You are definitely correct. And there we go. Cool. All right. Yeah, so thanks, Ken. And yeah, welcome everybody to the May meetup for the Power BI and Modern Excel Vancouver User Group or something to that effect. Just before we jump into what's new in Power BI, for those of you who may not have attended before, my name is Joseph Yeates, and I generally present the what's new in Power BI at the meetup or at the beginning of the Power BI track at the Vancouver meetup. So a little bit about me. I'm currently a subject matter expert of business intelligence and data analysis at Corporate Finance Institute. So we're an e-learning company, and we build courses and training around really anything to do with data, not just Power BI, but also like Python, Tableau, some machine learning stuff, some data science stuff, SQL, really like everything in the world of data and BI. As part of my role there, I model, manipulate, analyze, visualize data, do all sorts of stuff. But really, my passion is Power BI and R. I would say are my two favorite applications. I also have a blog and website, feathersanalytics.com, where do a little bit of video content, some blogging around some of my favorite BI and data topics. But with that, I think we can just jump into what's new in Power BI for the month of May. And as always, the place I start these presentations are at the monthly blog, the monthly feature summary. I only have 15 minutes or so. I mean, every month it could be probably the full feature presentation of what's new in Power BI. So I just sort of pick and choose some of my favorites. So if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the things that I cover, or you just want to see the full list and some YouTube videos, some walkthroughs, and some documentation around all the new features for this month, I would definitely recommend that you check out the Microsoft blog here. So as always with this blog post, they kind of group together the new features into sort of similar sections. So I generally focus on this reporting section here at the top. And in fact, 4 of my favorite new features for this month are from the reporting section. But we also can see that we have some Power Query or data connectivity and preparation features as well. Generally, there are new connectors or updates to existing connectors that we can pull all our data into Power BI from. Some new features for the service, for the mobile app, for developers, some new visualizations as well. But like I say, we're going to stay within this reporting area. And one of my favorite new features, and really it has been for the last few months because they're constantly releasing new updates, are some updates to the new format pane. So I think this was made generally available either last month or probably more longer ago than that, a few months ago now. But one of the features that I kind of previewed last month that wasn't shipped last month, but we knew it was coming for May and now it's here, is this ability to sort of set a user preference and to expand all subcategories within the format pane by default. So what I mean by that is if I go into Power BI, within the format tab here in the visualizations pane, when I expand a section for x-axis, for example, we can see that range, which is this top option, this box here, is expanded, but values is collapsed and title is collapsed. And maybe as a user, what I want to see when I expand x-axis is all of the subcategories within this option to be expanded like this by default, so I can just see all of the options that are available to me within this x-axis sort of like formatting category. So I can set that as a preference if I go to options and settings and options. Under report settings, when the box actually shows up, but under report settings here, we have this new toggle under format pane that we can expand all subcategories by default when we open a category. So I just need to check this. And now when I open up like y-axis, for example, we can see title, values, range are all open by default. If I go back to x-axis, same thing where values and title were previously collapsed. Now it's expanded. So it just gives us a little bit more control over how we want to interact with sort of authoring our Power BI reports, and it can make it a little bit more convenient for us as well. My second feature that I like from this month's release is we can now have like a canvas zoom is generally available in Power BI. So previously, all of the options to kind of control the canvas size we can find in the View tab up here on the ribbon. And under Page Fit, we can fit to page, fit to width, which looks like this, or the actual size, which looks like that. But now down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have sort of full control of zooming into the canvas. We can go like over 300% if we want. This can be really helpful just to make things like pixel perfect as we're developing our reports, or even just for our users who are interacting and consuming our report, if they want to really zoom in on one visual or make it a little bit easier for them to see. We now have the ability to do this. We can zoom right in and right out. I'm just going to go back to fit to page, but this zooming is really handy as well, that we can do this actually within the Power BI desktop application, as opposed to like just zooming in on our monitor, for example. And this brings me to my third favorite feature for this month. I've demoed this sort of in a similar way previously, but we now have like that data point selection for visuals. We can do like rectangle data selection. So if I hold Control and click on this visual here, we can see that I can generate like a rectangle to sort of do this like lasso data point selection. So now I've selected all of these data points instead of clicking on lines or like clicking and control clicking through. And we can see that when I do that selection, it cross filters all of my other visuals. If I want to add some further data points, I can control click to add like maybe the next month in the series, and all of the other visuals will update once again. But yeah, this is really handy when we're working with something maybe like a line chart, like with time series data, or if we had a scatter plot as well with lots of individual points, and we just kind of want to select a subsection or a subset of all our data points, but we don't want to click on the 20 or 30 or 40 points. We can now do this in a single select, which definitely is going to save time and again just makes for a better user experience interacting with our Power BI reports. And finally, I was going to say the moment that we've all been waiting for, definitely the moment that Ken's been waiting for. My favorite feature from this month are field parameters in Power BI. So what field The problem I would say that field parameters can solve, or a helpful use case I would say for field parameters are, in this report on the right-hand side here, we have 3 column charts. And we're looking at the same measure, which is balance, in all 3 of these charts. And we're looking at balance in this top one by client type, which is one of the columns in our data model. In the second one, we're looking at balance by product category, and then balance by segment name. So looking at the same measure, we're just having to create 3 different visuals to look at some different views of balance by essentially just 3 different columns in our data set. And this can be a bit of a pain because, as you can see, like, we're having to use 3 visuals to get these 3 different views. And what would be nicer sometimes is to save space on our report canvas and to have a bit more like efficient use of the space that's available to us, is if we could combine all 3 of these visuals into one and just have the ability for our users to select, do I want to look at balance by client type or by product category or by segment name? And there are ways to do this previously by sort of building out our data model in different ways and building some different DAX measures. We could definitely get this behavior, but now it's actually native within the Power BI tool, which is awesome. So what that looks like is if we go to the modeling tab on the ribbon up here, and under parameters, the parameters section, we can go new parameter and fields. So this generates a new field parameter for us. This brings up this new dialog box. And what I can do is I can go through and select some columns from my data model that I want to be included in a slicer. So under client, I'm going to select client type. From product, I'm going to select product category. And then from segment, I'm going to select segment name. So these 3 columns are the same that populate these 3 visuals over here on the right-hand side. And I'm going to leave this add slicer to the page checkbox checked. And once I hit create, we can see that a few different things happen within our Power BI report and within our data model as well. Here we go. So up here in the report canvas, once it loads, we can see that, or here in the report canvas, we have a new slicer called parameter that have those 3 fields that we defined within the parameter dialog pane. Up here in the DAX formula bar, if I just zoom in to make this a little bit bigger, we can see this is how our parameter has been created. We've created client type, product category, segment name, and then some DAX code. We've ordered it as well. So we've basically just created a new parameter with these 3 items. And we can see this parameter over here in our fields pane on the right-hand side. On a new parameter table in our data model, we have this parameter. And what we can do is that on a new visual, rather than dropping in all our column names, we can take this parameter and drop that on our x-axis here. And now with this slicer, we can control what fields appear on our axis. So client type, we can see that the visual matches this one in the top. When I toggle to product category, now we can see that we're displaying these 3 different product categories to match the visual in the middle. And when I select segment name, now we can see that it matches this visual at the bottom. So it just allows us to use multiple different columns on an axis and have a really dynamic way that allows our users to control what view we want of the data. This isn't the only use case that we can use field parameters for, but I think that this is one that I think definitely comes to mind for me when we're looking at the same measure but want to look at that across different columns. This is super super cool. It's going to save I think everyone a lot of time authoring these reports and just give us more flexibility as well. So yeah, there's a lot of buzz around this feature, and I'm really excited it's part of the Power BI desktop app now, and I'm really looking forward to using it in a lot of my reports, I have to admit. But with that, those are my 4 favorite features for this month. I'm going to pass it back to Ken and pass it back to Cristian to learn more about writing back to a SQL database with Power Query. But thank you for the time, and looking forward to the presentation.
Cool. Thanks, Joseph, as always. And yeah, that was definitely the one that I wanted to see the most out of this. Just a quick note, Henry asked, if that's going to be an Excel too. And the answer, I think, in the short term is definitely not. Longer term, eventually, I mean, my hope is that one day, yes. But the challenge is that if I've read all the documentation correctly on this, in order to put this stuff forward, the modeling engine needs to be talking to the SQL Analysis Services 1400 version or higher. Power Pivot is on the 1100 version, and it's stuck there until the Excel team goes and comes up with a way to rev the Power Pivot engine inside Excel, or the Analysis Services engine inside Excel. We're not going to see that kind of stuff come through. So it's a big challenge. Stanton, as far as not deciding if you want to go to Toronto or New Zealand, why don't you just go to both? I mean, that's the easy solution. All right, so it is my great pleasure to welcome Cristian back to the, and as Ed says, that technique won't work in Analyze in Excel either, and I think it's for the same reasons, unless I'm wrong on that one, Ed. I think you've been studying this one even a little bit closer than I have. All right, so my great pleasure to welcome Cristian back to run the presentation of how to actually write back to SQL Server using Power Query. I think for most people, we know that we generally use queries to pull things, not push things, but it's going to be an interesting look at what we have here. So, Cristian, just remind me here, questions you want me to just sort of moderate them in as we go along is your preferred, I believe?
Yes, please.
All right, fantastic. In that case, the screen's yours, bud. I'll get out of your way and let you do your thing.
Let me share my screen and stop my camera, as Teams is acting really strange these days.
That's probably a good plan for today, yeah.
I don't know what happened earlier, but yeah.
I can see your screen. You're good there. Yep, screen's good.
Okay, so let me cut the camera. Hopefully I will not cut the microphone.
I can still hear you, so we're good there.
Okay, so let's go. First of all, thank you, Ken, for for asking me to come back to Vancouver Power BI user group. It's a great honor to be asked by you to come and present something. Hopefully, this time I will fit inside the slot. So. Not like last time when I went overboard. Thank you all for joining the session, and hopefully you'll get something out of it, and you can use the techniques that I'm showing from in this session. A few words about me. My name is Cristian Angyal. For the new people in the room, for the ones that were not here in March. I'm an electrical engineer. As a background, I worked in different positions in engineering, project management, business project management, and lately I'm working in IT. I'm a kind of lazy guy. I mean, efficient guy, and this is why I always wanted to do my work easier and faster, and it was easier to learn some things and then test them with different certifications. And I'm also the organizer of Romania Power BI user group. We also run monthly meetups, and it was really good last year when we started to have Ken as our first guest. But enough about me. Let's move to what we are here for. So in order to do the demos today, because it will be mostly demos, we need two things, SQL Server Management Studio and SQL Server 2019 Developer. These are totally free stuff from Microsoft, and it should be easy to install them. Is just click, and everything is installed. And if we have enough time, I'll show you how it works in Azure SQL with a Power BI report. But before moving forward, I just want to have two big disclaimers. I'm not a SQL guy, so I'm not a SQL DBA or anything related. I'm just a guy trying to find solutions to different data problems. So as Ken was saying a few years ago when we met, I know just enough SQL to be dangerous. So if you are trying to do something like this or something more complicated, you should have a good DBA friend. And the second disclaimer is that there are tools that do what we are doing here much better, like Azure Data Factory or SSIS. I'm using Power Query because I love Power Query. I saw, and the credit for the technique itself goes to Parker Stevens. He had a video, actually he had several videos, different videos last year or 2 years ago, writing data with Power BI, and my task, because I had something to do in Excel, I wanted to adapt everything to Excel first. So basically what we'll be doing, we'll get some data from a web page, some snapshot data in Excel, and then writing it to SQL. We will get a snapshot of the data, and we'll pick up where we left in March, just briefly showing what we needed. And normally the next day, if you don't have a history, you're taking another snapshot on the next day and writing it to SQL, and then the next day another one. So basically it's doing snapshots with Excel, storing data in Excel, but in the same time writing them to SQL. And then, as I said, if we have time, I'll show you how to do it with Power BI, even if I'll show you it's not exactly the same approach, but it's doable. So it's demo time. Let's go to Excel, this one, and let me show you briefly what we need to do. There is a website in Romania showing the Danube water levels on all the entry points, all the cities where Danube it's measured in Romania. There are 24 cities. Let me show you the cities on the map. These are the cities. So here it's the entry in Romania, and in different cities, the Danube level is measured every day. So the first city going in Romania is Baziaș, and the last one is Sulina. Even if we have some data, some official data, there is no history for this data. And what we tried to do in the last session was to build a table with history for all this data. And we did it with Excel. Really, really easy. So let me open Power Query, and I'll show you how we did it. So we had let me make it zoom in a bit. I had a connection to the web page just to get the data from the web page, navigating to that specific table, and then I did some steps to clean up the data. And then, as I've learned from Ken, I'm just referencing this raw data connection, doing a new table, new query, where I'm adding an index, and this time the index, as you can see, it's a little bit different than a normal index, because I wanted to have the index respecting the water flow as it enters the country towards the end. So even if I have the first city, Sulina, in the table, I wanted to start with the back. This is why when I added the index, I just started from 23 and went with an increment of -1. this is how we ended up to have an index for all of them from 23 to 1, because this is the first city in Romania, this is the last one. I'm just removing the columns that I need, that I don't need, sorting the rows according the flow, then you flow, and then added a custom column to get with datetime local now to get the actual snapshot. Let me refresh the preview, 10:30, and then changing the type to make it datetime, and then loading this data into Excel. Well, the trick here, the self-join here, as I showed you last time, is actually a technique that it's working only in Excel. And the way how we wanted to do this was to reload this data as a new query. So we're just doing a right click with get data from table range, reloading it in Power Query. Let's put it like Excel data, and do a simple Control A, detect data types to make sure that everything is okay. And this is the trick to make the snapshot. Going back to the previous query that we did, the one that we are loading in Excel, based on the initial technique that Matt Ellington wrote about with self-referencing table doing merges. I'm not using merge here, I'm using an append. So I'm going to Home tab, append query, and on this original query, I'm just appending the Excel 10 data, the new query that I loaded from Excel. Doing so, we have everything we need. This time, if we're closing and loading everything in Excel, you'll see that the data, the number of records just grows. And if we are doing a refresh, it grows again. So every time we are doing, now we have 69 records. Every time we are doing a snapshot, I see that this one is not formatted as a date. Sure that every time we are doing a refresh, we get new data. Well, we have a problem because every time we are doing refresh, we have new data, but we need only a single snapshot per day. So in order to do this, we just go back to the query and do a small trick to group everything and keep only the last snapshot. So selecting all the columns that we need to group by, right click. I think I should select only one and then add the other ones. But I was expecting to have a group by with everything. Location, water level, last update, and index. And here we have a last snapshot day, getting only the maximum of our last snapshot data. So out of everything, we should get only the last ones. 1034, yeah, only one record per refresh. Now that we know how to fix it, well, here I think I have a problem because, yeah, this one is the problem. I still have an exclamation mark here. Every time we are refreshing, we are getting the data only from that specific day because we are getting grouping by, we are solving the duplicates issue. And now let's come to what we wanted to show. Let me open SQL Server Management Studio. And here on the local host, let me refresh it and see whether I have a table or not already. Yes, I do. I will have to drop it first. I have a test database inside my local SQL server. Refresh it. Yeah. Inside this database, no more tables. First thing is to create a table. Well, we need to create a table. I'm calling it Danube Daily Water Levels with an ID, which is a number, a measurement location, which is a text, a varchar, the water level, which is also a number, and none of them is allowed to be null. A measurement date, which is a datetime, a location index, and a last snapshot date. So these columns in the table are exactly the same columns that I'm having in my Excel file. So let me just run this one, execute commands completely. We should have a table which is empty. Refresh tables. Yes, the table is here. Selecting from it, it's okay, it's empty. Well, in order to insert data here, we should write the kind of insert, right? A SQL insert. And I have something here. It's a simple insert, just inserting into this table on every column that we define. Let me go like this. Yeah, should be visible completely now. So I'm inserting into this table on the columns that I already developed specific values for each column. So for ID, I'm inserting 1. For measurement location, I'm inserting Basgiash and so on. Let's try if this one works. One row affected should be okay. Let me select from it. Now this time inside this table, yes, I do have a row. It's okay. So this kind of insert, we need to send it from Excel. And how do we do it? Well, going back to Excel. And inside Power Query, we need to add what is happening here. Snapshot. I think this one. Okay. And yeah, I think I know what is happening. I just wrote here last snapshot date, and I'm looking for last snapshot date. Let me see if I can modify it. Oh, there are errors in previous step. Ken, help me out. What am I doing wrong?
So look at your change type step. I think the change type step on this query is the one that's blowing up, right? It's that one there. So
Yeah.
so somewhere you've got date instead of day listed there. Yeah, it's the one right there. And now does it fix it now?
Thank you.
Go. No worries.
Okay. So here, in order to add this data inside a SQL database, we would need a kind of insert statement, right, for each of them. And in order to do it, we add a custom column And because let's call it SQL insert. And because I already tried it before, I will just paste it and explain it. I'm just writing a text here with an insert into exactly the statement, the SQL insert statement that I showed you before, concatenating this text at the beginning with the text from different columns that I'm having here. So text from ID, actually, I think I missed one. I should have an ID. Of course, I deleted something, but I'll do it. Yeah, I think I missed a step, but this is not a problem. And I'll show you why. Here, just before, let me keep this one. Just before adding that one, we should add an ID. So we have the location index, the one that I showed you, but I forgot to add a step, an actual unique ID for the entire table. And you'll see later why this is needed. Just adding an index column from one, calling it ID. And now add the custom column. SQL insert. So now I'm concatenating the text before.
Hey, Cristian, before you dive into this one, your last snapshot date is here again instead of last snapshot day.
Yeah, I saw that. This is why I'm passing through. This is how I saw this ID. I forgot about it. This is why I'm passing through the entire code, because it's different than what I already have prepared on the complete file. Thank you. Anyway, it's a matter of this is the step where you have to pay, and I also have to pay attention to codes and format the code afterwards just to make sure it's right. It's not really easy to get the text from these different columns, or think about if you have some free text containing quotes, you have to replace them with double quotes here. So it's always a challenge to have this one correct. So I'm getting the text from the ID column, concatenated with the text from location, the one from the water level in centimeters, concatenating again with the text from last update, and the text from the index, which is actually the location index in this one in my SQL table. And then, like Ken said before, it's the last snapshot day here. And I'm concatenating another text here in the end, and I'll show you afterwards why I'm doing this. Let's see if this one works. And yes, indeed, for each of the rows, I'm having an insert statement. And we should try if this insert statement, let's pick any one of them, if it's working in SQL. Let's go here. Insert this one row affected. This time, as we already had one, it should work, right? Well, it should work. But in order to write it, if we run it again, it's working again, and this time we have three rows in SQL. Of course, we have duplicates here because we inserted the same thing, but we'll fix it later, a bit later. But in order to write this code inside SQL, we have to pass it to SQL. So how do we do it? Well, we just right-click and build a new query from other sources as if we would connect to SQL database. So new query database SQL Server. I'm just writing the local host. This is my SQL Server instance, and my database is testDB. Just building a simple connection to my SQL Server, and from here, just right-clicking and transforming data, just to make sure that I have a connection out of it. But I'm writing this only to get the this string. Actually, if I'm editing the code here, I actually need this one to transform it in a function. And in that specific function, I want to pass an insert statement as a parameter. Insert statement. As text, of course, with the equal and greater than, just to define the function. And then here in the query itself, we need to add another step, which is called insert, for example. And this one, for this one, we will use the value.native query. Value.native query. What? On our source, which is our first step, as a target, and the query is the one from the insert statement that we already are passing as a parameter. And here in the end, we have to, in the we have to refer to the last step. Now that we've built ourselves a function, let's rename it and call it fx insert. And in our data, we should just invoke this custom function, adding another custom column, not the custom column, invoking custom function here. New column name, well, we can call it insert, for example, which is the function that we need to call. It's the fx SQL insert, not the insert. Okay, it's working. And the insert statement, it's gonna be one column, which is this one, the SQL insert column. Well, invoking it already, it's already writing data to the SQL database. This one is not working because we didn't have data here, but we will fix this afterwards. This one is already working, and the reason why I inserted the text inside that string was just to make sure that when I expand this, I'm making sure that this column is already working. So let's go back to SSMS and do a select out of the entire table, and now we should have all this data inside SQL Server with everything that is here. But if we are refreshing the data again, or even if we are refreshing only the preview here, everything reruns, and instead of how many records we had here in SQL, 98, this time we'll have 144 because everything that was written, it's rewritten. So we are not counting for the duplicates. How do we fix it? Well, first of all, let's delete the drop to table. Let's make sure we don't have errors here. And get out the nulls. What am I doing? Does not equal null. So we keep only the good parts. And going back to SQL Server, we have to recreate this time. Let me refresh. Yeah, we don't have the table anymore. We dropped it. When we are creating the table again, we have to make sure that on this ID column, we have unique numbers. So unique values. Of course, numbers because it's an int. Let's recreate the table. And now we should have it again. Not the properties, refresh. Tables. Yes, we have it. Selecting from it, it's empty. It's okay. But writing again this kind of statements, let's try to do it from here. First one, it's working fine because there is no other ID 1. But if we are trying to edit again, we will get an error with a violation of the unique key constraint. Well, we have to cater for this inside Power Query and write a different insert statement with a try and catch. And this is pretty easy. Here, let's go to the custom column. And instead of writing this code, we will write a code which is catering for the try. So we have a begin, a try, and begin, catch, and catch. This is a SQL statement that will try to execute the first part until the end try, and if it's getting an error, we'll go to the catch part, which is here, and if we are not writing anything inside it, at least it will not provide us an error with it. And then we are having the same select inserted row as a message in the end, so we can see it here in Power Query that everything was okay. This time, I think I know why.
Stay again.
It's yeah. The insert statement, it's like this time with a try and begin, catch and catch. Let's try to run this one 2 times in SQL Server and see if it's working. I don't need the select. Let's do it from here. 0 rows affected because I already have the ID 1 here. If we are changing the ID, 1 row affected, and together with the other one, we should have 2 rows now in the database. But if we are trying to add again the ID 2 here, we have 0 rows affected. And it's working. Just to make sure that it's not a problem with what we have, we should delete whatever we have in the table. Check it if it's empty. And I'll go back to Power Query and just go until the end. And then in the end, just delete the end row. Close and load. And we have a snapshot both in Excel and in SQL Server. We should have deleted this step also, this SQL insert column. Edit. This one is also not needed in Excel. But this time, if it worked, even if it refreshed 2 times in SQL Server, we have a single ID for each entry on each day. This is how the entire problem is fixed. Well, coming back to Excel, this is the one. As I said, this technique is derived from the original technique developed by Matt Ellington for self-referencing table and adapted from the videos from Parker Stevens. This technique is using the append instead of merge, usable for snapshots where historic data is not available. As I showed you, it's an entire custom process to deal with duplicates and uniqueness inside the SQL database with a begin, try, and try, begin, catch, and catch. In SQL Server, it fixed, and inside Power Query, a group by should fix the problem. As I said, you should really have a good friend as a SQL DBA to help you with something much more complicated than what I've showed you here. And as I said, there are better tools to do it. And this current technique is only working in Excel because I'm using the append and I'm loading the table and then I'm reloading it again. So we can keep the history both in Excel and in SQL Server. For Power BI, there is a different kind of technique to deal with unique IDs, and I will show it to you how it's working. And as I said before, just because you can, it doesn't mean that you should do it. So always treat this kind of writing back to SQL, treat it with care. It doesn't mean that it's really good. Usually, as Ken said at the beginning, we are getting data out of SQL and not pushing data there. But there are certain use cases where this technique is helpful. Now let's move quickly on a already prepared file on Power BI and show you how we can how we fixed it, doing both writing in SQL Server and getting data from SQL Server for reporting. So here, let me just do a refresh and see if everything is working. So I'm getting data from the server, from the website, writing to SQL, and then getting data from SQL for this report. It should work. Hopefully. And if not, you see here that it did work today, earlier today.
Just Power BI. You're very, very nervous going down in the middle of a live demo, right?
Yeah. Well, I won't stay to have the refresh. Maybe we'll have it after we open Power Query. Let me open the Power Query editor here. And the technique here is more or less the same. So I'm just connecting to the website here, and I'm doing the raw data connection for the snapshot, cleaning up the data. And I have a different raw data connection on for the SQL Server to get the data for the reporting. So this time I'm having 2 different connections, one to get the data from the web for the snapshot and one to get the data after it was written to SQL Server. So This one, it's actually connecting to a Azure SQL Server database, which is this one. It's also called TestDB. And I'm having the same function to insert. If we are checking the advanced editor, it's more or less the same thing. I'm not sure why Power BI is doing. Usually it did everything in a different let and in statement. I just deleted it. Maybe Ken can tell us. I copied everything from Excel and the entire function, it was inside the let in statement. Just deleted it.
But sometimes it just does stuff like that. I mean, it works, but it's just weird.
I know. So. I know that in data flows is doing this, but I was surprised to see that it's doing it in Power BI also. And the snapshot data query is this one, which is actually referencing the raw data connection for snapshot, initial one. I added an index, removing the other columns, sorting the rows, and adding the a date time local now, renaming the columns, changing the types, doing the group by for the unicity. And then this is where the technique it's a little bit different than what we had in Excel. I'm just adding a buffered index. Actually, this is referencing and getting the index that I'm building here. So I had to build a dedicated index for SQL Server so that every time I'm getting the data, I wanted to have a single ID which is related to the date when I'm doing the refresh. And because I know that I have only 24 rows every day, I made it in such a manner that I only push maximum 99 different IDs, and I'll show you what I mean by this. But the idea was to relate the entire index on date. And I started a new query with datetime local now, converted it to table, doing it date, renaming the column. And this is the step that it's really interesting. So I created an additional column where I added, Zoom is not working here. So I'm getting the year for the, from the date, multiplying with 1 million, plus the month of this date multiplied with 10,000, plus the day of the today multiplied with 100, in order to get a number which is looking like this. So I know the ID itself, it will be 2022-05-19. So I always know that it was done today on the 19th of May, on 2022. And I had two more characters for the ID itself. If I want to have, if I know that I have, I don't know, between 1 and 999 IDs, it's just a matter of multiplying everything with 10 more. So let's do it like this. And this time, at the end, I'm keeping the date here as a number, 2022-05-19, and now I have 1,000 IDs available from 000 to 999 available to add. This is the step which is different from from Excel, because this time I cannot write it anywhere and append it. But I want to have a simple ID that I'm referencing here in the today index, and adding an index as an added column. We're just adding an index starting from our index, our today index, and incrementing with 1, getting for each of the rows that I'm having in the snapshot a different ID starting from 1900, 1901, 02, 03 until 22. I have only 22 now because I started from 0, but this can be modified according to the use case. And from here, it's the exact same thing. I'm already having the SQL insert statement with the try and catch to cater for the uniqueness of the data inside. I'm invoking the custom function that I built earlier, expanded the insert and removing columns. Having all the data written to SQL Server, and now let's go to SQL Server and let me show you what I added. This is the other connection to the Azure SQL database. And in the TestDB, I'm checking for the table, same table name. Let me order it by ID. Descending. I added an additional column here, and if we are checking the table in design view, I added this additional column, insert time, which is a datetime2 type column, which is always getting a default value with the function getDate. So every time I'm inserting data in SQL Server, I'm having this insert time here, which is written automatically for me, knowing that even if I have the snapshot date from 1341, I know exactly when the data was written inside the database. Well, looks like it's working. Let me try to refresh it now and see how the report is working. If it's actually writing data to SQL Server. Yeah. Okay, and now the refresh should work. And when we are doing the reporting from the database, we should have a different date here. This is strange. 1041, it's 1108. Well, I have some old data here, but we don't care about it, but this one, yeah, the IDs are correct. 2022, 0921. Measurement date is correct. 1341. Let me do a refresh here. Refresh the data, only this one. And then refreshing the data coming from the SQL Server. Really, really strange. This time it's not writing. Ah, I know why. And I know why it's not writing. Because for today, I already have some data inside SQL Server. So in order to make it work and make sure that it's fully functional, we should delete everything which was inserted today. Let's delete that from this one. Let's select and check the condition where last snapshot date equals to today, 2022-05-19. Select. Zero 519 or equal this one. So we need to delete what I inserted today earlier and make sure that we are inserting it now. 23 rows affected. Okay. And now do the refresh on the Power BI. Refresh data, writing back to SQL, and now the data is working. So this was my demo for today, and I think I was 10 minutes early, hoping that you found it useful. Thank you again for your presence, and looking forward to your questions.
Great, thank you, Cristian. That's awesome. I'm gonna wait for questions. If anybody has questions they want to throw into the chat, I can certainly pass those on to Cristian. Cristian, I got one to start you off because I know this is the kind of question that you would actually go and ask me in the middle of a live stream as well. So, moving the duplicates from your table, you're using Group By to do it. Did you try, or did you find a performance difference in using the Remove Duplicates feature instead?
To be honest, I never tried it, but probably depending on the number of rows that you are working with, one or another method can be used. But usually I'm using Monkey Tools to check the query timings. So depending on the number of rows and the method, I'm always using Monkey Tools to check the server timings, and I'm using the fastest method.
Yeah, I was just curious if you actually had tested this one or not, because I say, I mean, Group By is certainly a valid way, right? But I was curious if there was a perf difference.
The data set here was really small with 24 rows of data, and to be honest, I didn't even consider it.
There you go. See, I would have gone Remove Duplicates first, and the Group By is probably not the route that I would have hit first, but that's why I was curious if you had a reason or not. But
I'm always grouping by here because I want to get only the latest data from all the refreshes. Probably removing duplicates containing the last day when you have the seconds probably will not fix it.
Yeah, it may not. That's I was just thinking you might have
unless you select only the 4 columns, the first 4 columns.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, is I would have just left the actual date off it. But as I say, I was just curious. I mean, it's and it's certainly not something you need to test. I was just curious if you had, because I know that you do test these things on a regular basis.
Yeah, probably if we would remove the duplicates only from these ones.
Yep.
Yeah, it should work because you have the last update date.
I mean, the benefit of doing the Group By, though, is you have very, very explicit control of making sure you get the maximum snapshot. You don't have to worry about sorting the table, and Power BI maybe not observing that sort, or Power Query maybe not observing that sort. So I can certainly see why you'd go the other way as well. As I say, it was more of a curiosity question more than anything else. I was just curious if there was a performance difference there at all. But anyhow.
Okay.
I don't see any other questions coming in. I mean, you're getting there was a bunch of thumbs up and comments and stuff, and some great tricks as per Jeff, and I agree. I mean, I think that's some cool stuff that you've actually got going on with this one. But I don't see any other questions here.
Well, thank you very much, Ken, again for inviting me, and thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully,
thanks for coming back and doing it.
Get some of it in the rare use cases where this should be used.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not it's as rare as we think it is. I'm sure that there's people out there that would use techniques like this to go and populate. I mean, I know for myself. I mean, I got a SQL Server database that lives in Azure that has to pull from somewhere else that I've got no easy way to do it. I mean, this is something that I'm looking at going, But again, can you?
Yeah, I was looking for a method like this when I was doing snapshots out of the Power BI report server. I was having a refresh schedule with snapshots of different refreshes, and I wanted to build a history out of them and see how many are okay, how many are failing. And I was doing everything in Excel because I wanted to build up the history out of it. And yeah, it helped in Excel, but it would have been much better to have it in SQL Server and report out of it, make it work automatically and work on it and afterwards. So this was actually used, the method was used in at work, and there are use cases where this method can be helpful.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks again, my friend. Appreciate you coming by and showing us this stuff. For everyone here, we will get the recording posted up within the next 48 hours on the SkillWave YouTube channel. And don't forget to sign up for the next couple of meetups that are coming up. And Cristian, I'm sure we'll have you back sometime in the future when you've got something else that's new and cool and interesting to show. Although I'm sure you'll probably make me come and visit you first, but it's all good.
Yeah, so. I'm pretty sure you will be first.
There you go.
Yeah, you will go.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks again, Cristian. Appreciate your time. Thanks again to Joseph for doing our what's new at the beginning of the session as well. I hope everybody's enjoyed this and learned something amazing. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.